Okay. Hello, it's so great to see all of you guys. I am Jillian. I'm one of the staff advisors here for the Yellow Cluster. So what that means is including psychology and cognitive science majors. I'm going to be the moderator for today's Q&A, and I'm going to have all of our staff advisors introduce themselves first, and then I'll introduce the panelists or help them introduce themselves, and then we'll get started on the questions. So, Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy Jenkins. I'm one of the academic advisors for your majors.
And then Alyssa.
Hi everyone, Alyssa McGorian. I'm an undergraduate advisor.
And Melina.
Everybody, my name is Melina Gillies-Doherty. I'm the undergraduate programs manager for psychology and cognitive science.
And then Rachel is our last staff advisor.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm another one of the staff advisors.
Okay, and then next I'll have our panelists introduce themselves. So Vineha, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm a fourth year psychology major and a minor in sociocultural anthropology, and I'm a peer advisor.
And then we're also gonna have you introduce what originally attracted you to your area of study.
Okay, that's a great question. I think I've always been really interested in human behavior, and I knew that I wanted to work with individuals in mental health care. And I decided to major in psychology and do the AB degree because there's just so much flexibility in the kind of courses that you can take. And I wasn't totally sure if I wanted to go into research or be like a mental health clinician. So I felt like the flexibility with AB would let me pursue like graduate studies in research or go into a more practical field.
And Daisy?
Hi everybody, my name is Daisy Robles. I'm a fifth year double major in psychology and organizational social. What drew me into psychology, I was really interested in counseling, specifically marriage and family therapy. But then I got into sociology, and with psych and social, I got really into like nonprofit community help. And right now it's something that, am I freezing? Or am I lagging?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. And it's just something that I'm really interested in now is in social work. So yeah.
Thanks. Aditi?
Hi everyone, my name is Aditi. I'm a fourth year cognitive science major with the neuroscience emphasis. So I guess what drew me to the major, so cognitive science, I like the idea of like studying psychology and neuroscience because that was kind of something I was interested in from high school. And I like that the major would kind of allow me to study both. And then I'm also pre-med, so that kind of helped that a lot of the like requirements were part of the major too. So I can answer some questions about that later.
And Emma?
Hi all, my name is Emma. I'm a third year psychology and linguistics double major, also minoring in English. So I actually originally started out with just in psychology. I'm doing the AB major, and then I actually recently added linguistics this past spring just because I took a few introductory courses and it just really intrigued me. The course in general, and also my background. My background has several languages in my family, so I thought that was really interesting. But I originally was due to psychology because I grew up throughout middle school and high school. I just had several friends who, you know, came from difficult backgrounds, and being there as a friend and witnessing that, I wanted to know, you know, how I could help them, right? Or back then, you know, obviously there's not much you could do, but then like that was like, I guess, my root in like, you know, just wanting to like help others. And I realized that psychology is definitely a good path to like, you know, lots of different variety of like careers I could do exactly that, interacting with other people. Yeah.
And Simona?
Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to UC Davis. It's really great to see your faces, and even though you're maybe in different places and not exactly just next door to us as you would be in a normal year, it's really great to see you all. My name is Simona Ghetti. I'm a professor in psychology. I'm also the vice chair for undergraduate education, and my job is to create the schedules of the classes that you're taking, and also I oversee how students can take internship units and research units. So I'm happy to get any questions about our major.
And David is our last panelist.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Corina. I'm a professor in linguistics with an appointment in psychology. I am the chair of the undergraduate program in cognitive science. And I do research on language processing. And so again, I'd like to, with Simona, welcome everybody here. It's great to see everybody and get this quarter finally going. I know there's lots of anticipation and there'll be bumps along the way, but I'm sure we'll excel and do a great job. So welcome everybody.
Yes, thank you all for joining us. I know this year is going to be very strange and different, but I hope that this virtual orientation will answer some of your questions that you have coming up into starting at UC Davis. We gathered some questions over the weekend, so we won't be doing like a live Q&A, but we'll be focusing on a lot of the main questions that were answered, you know, or questions that were asked by many of you, and we'll just get started. So the first one is, what is it like majoring in psychology or cognitive science? Can anyone jump in? Maybe the student panelists would be best.
I mean, I can go. So, and I feel like, so I'm a cognitive science major with the neuroscience emphasis. So I feel like my experience has been, I've taken more of the psych classes that are more like science focused because of the emphasis I'm doing. But I've had a really good experience with the entire department. I think all the professors are really nice and really invested in their field, and they're really looking out to like have all the students interested. And I've never had any problem in terms of getting in contact with professors and even talking with them about their own like research that they're doing on the side. And I found that everyone's like really welcoming in terms of like helping you get more involved in the field. So yeah.
I'll chime in. I agree with Aditi. As a psychology AB major, yeah, most of pretty much every psych class I've taken, the professor has just always been really, really engaging, and they just like their enthusiasm about what they do always translates to the classroom. Yeah, and I've never taken a single psych class where I didn't feel that. Obviously, you know, going through the years, you'll experience numerous amounts of professors through your GEs and maybe different majors or minors you might decide to add. But like out of all the other miscellaneous classes I've taken, psych professors are definitely, psych or CGS professors are definitely very passionate. So that's something I really like about this major.
I agree with everything Emma and Aditi said. I'd just like to add that there's a lot of different like courses that you can take, and the nice thing about the program at Davis is that there's a lot of like different like emphases within psychology that you can take courses from. So if you're super interested in like social and personality psychology, you can take like several different classes from that group. Or if you're more interested in like cognitive or biological psychology, there's that option. And then of course developmental. So when I was looking at different programs, that's what really drew me to the Davis program, and that like opportunity to take courses from each of those disciplines.
I also agree for everybody. Sorry if my internet's really bad. But also for psych, it's very flexible, and you can really use it towards like any other majors that you're interested in. That's why I really like the psych department at Davis. And they're very, it's very, how do I say it? It's just cool. I really like the classes, and all the professors, like you guys said, are so passionate about what they're doing. And at least the professors that I had, they've been very helpful. Like they're very attentive to their students. I forgot the professor I had, but for like a biopsych, biology is not my strong suit, but I like it. And he really made me like biology with psychology. And he was like, oh, don't worry, you're gonna do super good on your next exam and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. So they're motivational, and they want you to have fun within their class. So I really like that.
Awesome, thank you all. The next two questions might be better posed to the faculty members on our panel. they're about the remote aspect of going into fall quarter. So should I be preparing somehow for virtual classes? And if so, how should I be preparing?
Well, we're in this together, right? So the campus transitioned from in-class instruction to remote instruction in March with very little preparation. So we all just got thrown in this virtual environment, and none of us or very few of us had done it before, and we just started going with it. So it required some adjustment on all, from the students' perspective, but also from the faculty perspective. So I know that in some cases it can be a little more difficult to keep up with your classes because you don't have the natural kind of markers of your day that would be going from one room to the next and seeing your friends. But a lot of students also said that once they got the kind of schedule down, like the discipline to go to classes you would if you were actually physically going, that there were actually some advantages to remote instruction. For example, a lot of us have begun to use the tools of Zoom to introduce small discussions groups, even in large classrooms. We would never be able to have small groups discussions when we have 300 people in a classroom, but with Zoom, we can divide the group in small groups. And now all of a sudden you are talking with 4 classmates about topics. Also, a lot of students have said that they felt less intimidated talking with professors or TAs when it's over Zoom. And so all of a sudden, I actually talk to students more than I would in a normal quarter. So for the most part, what I would say to prepare is to be ready to be kind of disciplined about your classes, but also, think flexibly about the fact that, of course, we're all adapting, but also, be ready to maybe discover some advantages too in this environment.
Yeah, I agree with Simona. I think this notion of setting up a schedule for yourself and trying to attend your classes as best possible is really good. I think it helps us all with these uncertain times to actually be able to fall into kind of a schedule of expectations. And I know for myself even that's been really helpful. One of the things that for the cognitive science majors, so some departments like psychology, for example, has been very, very proactive in getting all of their faculty very, very much ready to do online instruction with great tutorials and information for their faculty all through the summer. It's really been very, very impressive. My department, on the other hand, linguistics, has been a little bit, to be honest, self-critically, a little bit lackluster in that aspect. And so as a cognitive science major, because you're going to be taking classes from various departments, you may see some unevenness across the department's kind of response to how engaged they have been in the online, adopting the online ethos. So just bear that in mind, that you might find a little bit more variability as a cognitive science major as you take a class in neuroscience or in computer science or linguistics or psychology. Again, the university as a whole has been very much advocating this transition to online instruction, and most professors have done their due diligence in trying to pull it together in an effective way. But just bear in mind that you might expect some variability, especially across the many different departments that you may be participating in through the cognitive science major.
And I think both of you touched on this a little bit, but the next question goes a little bit deeper into what specifically faculty are doing to support their students. So how will faculty and staff be supporting students virtually? Will it be easy to get into contact with professors if we're struggling with the material?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to go for it first? Let's take turns here.
Sure, yeah, I'll take a stab at that. Yeah, again, I think the new virtual situation presents kind of even easier opportunities to do more like informal office hours. And I know all of the professors are very committed to making sure that we continue kind of that one-on-one type experience that often you get from visiting a professor in office hours. And one of the things that I'd like to start to think a little bit about is, again, within the kind of online communities that will eventually emerge from these. Again, that's within yourselves and some of the cohorts of your peers that you might have some things in common with. You might broach to a professor to say, hey, there's 4 of us, we'd like to come to a virtual Zoom meeting to discuss some of these either issues or career options or internship options. And that might be a way both to build community within your classes and also provide professors time to interact, but not overwhelm everybody so that we're doing one-on-one, questions and answers, 24/7. So that's just something to think about. And again, I think it's this idea that we're going to kind of want to rethink what like office hours even look like under this new scenario. But the professors are very, very attuned to fielding questions and talking with students, even if it's just for a short amount of time. Most of the professors have been asked to be very explicit as to what you can expect in terms of email. If you should send an email to a professor, what's the likely time, the turnaround time. Typically people will say, 1 to 2 days, you should expect a response. And again, as they always say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So if you have an urgent question that wasn't responded to, don't hold back, send another email. Everybody is kind of, we're all kind of trying to just come to grips with the sheer volume of information that we're trying to process in this digital fashion. So it's possible things could slip under the rug, but be proactive and reach out, and don't be afraid to do that. Again, I think this is going to be, we're all learning through this together, and we're all in this together. So this will help us also become more responsive to, well, are there better ways to organize these types of office hours or one-off meetings or what have you. There have been questions about, for example, whether one-off meetings should be recorded and shared with other people who might have had those same questions but didn't go ahead and choose to sign up for a particular office hour or one-off session. So these are some of the kind of questions that I think we'll be dealing with going forward.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a couple of things to to just confirm what David said, but also some other ideas. So one about office hours is that all of a sudden we have more flexibility in terms of when to hold them. I'm sensitive to the fact that a lot of you guys have jobs during the day and you may not be able to come to office hours. Well, we would normally schedule them during our own work day, right? But with remote with remote office hours and contact, that there's a little more flexibility. I personally feel more comfortable having office hours at awkward times in the evenings than when it's remote than I would be to be alone in a building with at off hours. And I think that that's the case for students as well. I also like, there's a lot of you guys here right now, and I love the fact that I see your faces and I can call you by name. And that also is true during classes. So all of a sudden, despite the fact that we're distant, there's also less anonymity where we have actual names and we can call each other by the first name without taxing my aging memory. And that's wonderful. I feel that that's, so another piece that I wanted to say is that we are cognizant of the fact that your access to the internet may be spotty and that you may not be always able to be in class when you should be. We strongly recommend that you attend your courses. In psychology, we're making a big effort to deliver most of our instruction synchronously. so that we are in the classroom when you do the learning, right? So we can talk, and just like we're doing right now. And so that's great. But we also know that some of you may not be able to attend, not just during classroom, but also classroom time, but also say during testing. And we have made a lot of efforts to kind of change our assessment too, in order to make it less stressful, less dependent on having your perfect internet kind of connection, so that nobody has to add that stress on top of everything else. So we've been trying to be more flexible on what we should expect. We still expect a lot from you, right? You guys are at the top university, so we should expect a lot from you. You belong here, and this is a top school. And so we are gonna behave like that, as if we are in a top school. However, we are also flexible because we understand that these are unprecedented times, and we wanna be mindful of not adding unnecessary stress to your day.
Thank you. So now we're going to get into some classes questions. So maybe more for the students for this next one. What classes do you feel have helped you the most? And are any of those classes ones that I can take in my first year at Davis? And we have both freshmen and transfer students on this call. So your answer might differ for those groups of people.
I feel like for freshmen who are just entering, obviously you'll only be able to take lower division classes when you first enter. So I'd say look at like the degree requirements depending on whether you're a cognitive science or psychology major. But in general, most will require like Psych 1 and like just lower introductory courses like that, which I think is good to take during your first year because you can kind of make sure that this is a major you're for sure interested in, and it'll also help you get to know like professors early on. And in terms of like other classes I've enjoyed, I'd say a lot of my like upper division classes have been like I think the most interesting and most useful, both like for like other extracurriculars like research that I've been involved in, and like just stuff for like future career wise, like some of the more like Psych 101, like that's a biopsych class. So that's like, I feel like has helped me in terms of like my career goals of like going to medical school eventually. So I'd say like for like transfer students, I think it's definitely helpful to see like maybe what kinds of courses, if you look and see like the descriptions for the courses to see maybe what aligns with your career goals and stuff like that. And I think that can kind of help you see maybe what fields and what like subfields of psych and cognitive science that may be more interesting to you.
Yeah, we don't offer too many lower division psychology courses. They're mostly the upper division coursework. So for like first years, you're definitely going to want to take Psych 41 as soon as possible. That's the research methods class. And I do think it was pretty helpful for when I was in a research lab, and just in general, when you're in upper division courses and reading articles, it's good to have that like foundation in research methods so that you understand what you're like reading about. In terms of classes that I've really enjoyed, I've really liked, I've honestly liked all of my upper division coursework in psychology, but I think the ones that stand out were definitely abnormal psychology. I really liked personality, social and personality development, and I actually really liked cognitive psychology as well, which was a surprise for me, but yeah, those were kind of my top classes. And but I'd honestly just recommend you explore at least one class from, I mean, you'll have to take one class from each discipline regardless of your degree type, but it's good to try them all out and see, you might discover that you liked something that you weren't expecting to like.
Thank you. Before we get to the next question about classes, I just realized that I didn't say anything about how staff will be supporting students virtually, so I wanted to say something about that. We are here to support you. We are doing Zoom advising sessions with students, so you can make an appointment with us. The first week and a half of the quarter will be drop-in advising, so if you could be patient with us as we learn how to do that on Zoom. This will be our first time, but we want to be there to support you during your first, week and a half of fall quarter. So we will be doing that on Zoom. We'll be putting information on our website about that. We're also thinking of different ways of like helping you find community here at Davis virtually. So we're thinking about like monthly or bi-monthly coffee talks with our advisors or peer advisors, things to like make us more accessible to you all, because we really want you to come to us with any questions that you have or any concerns that are coming up for you. We can only help you if we know about them. So, you know, we are here to support you virtually. So I just wanted to add that before we get to the next question. Do you have any tips on how to do well in psychology or cognitive science classes?
For us, who should take this? Should I offer the secrets of achievement? Well, you know, this is I think there are few ways in which you can do well. One is like being very mindful of what you're doing. So don't go through the motions, make choices. Some of them are going to be more restricted, like you have to take prerequisites in order to move on to upper division courses. But then you really have the opportunity to explore your interests. So take an active role in your learning. You know, this is an opportunity to figure out the kind of person that you are. And that's the great thing about college. So figure it out by exploring all of the options that this incredible campus offers. And, you know, in the psychology department, just to give you a sense, we are about more than 50 faculty. We offer a large, broad range of courses. So it's really, you can really explore your interests and get the opportunity to learn quite a bit about what you're interested in. And then the other thing is to take an active role within the course itself, within each courses. So don't wait until mid of the quarter to realize, uh-oh, there's something here that I'm not quite clear about. The quarters go extraordinarily fast. So you blink and you're already at midterm time. So you gotta be really mindful of your learning and just be ready from the first day to jump in, doing your readings, take an active role in your learning, because if you don't, you're going to feel that you're trying to catch up. And playing catch up is always hard and really not fun at all. So what you want to do is really to start strong from the get-go.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple things as well. Again, because this is such a new kind of venue for class instruction, I think student participation is going to be really, really critical for both the dynamics of the class as well as your own education. So while it's easy to kind of, you know, fade into the background of your living room, take the chance of asking a question or posing a question to the chat room. I think what you'll find is that this really enhances, you know, both your instructor's engagement in the class, and again, other dialogues that might emerge or other peer groups that might emerge about, hey, you know, I had that same type of question, and, you know, let's talk about this offline or in some other venue. I would really encourage that. One of the things I was actually teaching in Hong Kong this past winter, and it was very interesting because when the pandemic shut, we were initially in classes, and then we all had to go back, we all went online. And one of the interesting things was I noticed that in my face-to-face classes, many of the students who were second language learners were very, very kind of reluctant to try to participate. But as we went online, there seemed to be a little bit more kind of levity and freedom in their participation. And it was actually a plus. It was really good. People were less concerned about, you know, whether, you know, they phrased a question in a particular way or not. And it was actually really refreshing. So I think it does pose an opportunity for us to be more engaging. And I would really recommend that. Simona's notion about quarters going by very quickly are very true. So again, this goes back to this question of making sure that you're on top of your schedule and your assignments and so forth. Yeah, and the other thing is, you know, increasingly in education, you know, with so much information online and course material online, you know, it used to be the case that people were really, you know, back in my day where in a psychology course, you needed to know who Jung was and what Jungian theory was and you know, actualization and all this kind of stuff. But anymore, because of this stuff is so much more available, one of the things I want you to think about is not so much necessarily knowing the specific facts that you could pull out from your memory immediately, but nowhere within the course structure and the materials that your instructor is providing where these relevant topics and sections are. And that will also help you kind of free up your kind of memory and be able to navigate this information. This is part of what the new information age. It's not so much of knowing something, but know where to access it. And if you take that kind of approach in your own classwork, I think that will help you get through quizzes and paper writing and other assignments that you might face.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out 2 of our panelists actually had to leave the meeting to fulfill all the we had like an overflow of students that wanted to join that weren't able to join beyond 300. So they opened a new session for them. So 2 of our panelists are in that session now. So anyway. I want to touch briefly on the difference between psychology and cognitive science for our students that are curious about that. So can you speak to the difference between these 2 majors and fields?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So cognitive science is a new major here at UC Davis. We currently have about 620 undergraduates. It's a program that's only been around for about 5, going into 6 years now. And like all new programs, it's a program that's seen both great growth, but also faces challenges because it's never been done before. As a field, cognitive science tries to bring to bear multiple disciplines in understanding what human cognition is. It also, not only human cognition, but animal cognition and artificial intelligence and so forth. It's a very interdisciplinary major. You'll get exposure to again, psychology, linguistics, anthropology, communications, computer science, neuroscience, and which is also exhilarating, but also at times overwhelming, right? Because, and within the cognitive science major, we have 3 tracks. We have a BA, Bachelor of Arts. We have a more psychology, or excuse me, computer science oriented track, and a more kind of neuroscience track to help people kind of sort out this great wealth of interdisciplinary offerings that we have. In terms of career opportunities with the cognitive science degree, I've thrown around this notion of the information age, but it's very true that, you know, companies anymore are really looking for people who can pull together information from a variety of sources in whatever, whether it's, you know, working for whoever, you know, Facebook or Google or whoever, people are interested in this kind of, this broad spectrum of skill sets and toolkits that you can amass with a cognitive science major. One of the things that I know Simona might not agree with this, but I like to say it anyway, because I do think it's true. One of the advantages of being a cognitive science major is that when you go out on the job market and someone says, well, what were you as an undergraduate? Oh, I'm a cognitive science major. Most people are going to say, what the heck is that? They don't really know what cognitive science is. And so it gives you this kind of opening salvo and to be able to explain what it is that you've done and why it's important for them, and could potentially give you a leg up from a discipline, again, beloved to me, like psychology, where people have these preconceived notions of what psychology is. So I think in some ways it's kind of refreshing, but it also puts the onus on you to be able to explain this kind of new field to future employers or graduate schools that you might be interested in pursuing going forward.
Well, I'm going to offer a counterpoint to what David just said. I agree that as a cognitive scientist, they actually could have that kind of opening line. But it's also great as a psychology major to correct these preconceived notions about what psychologists might mean. You know, I think I count in the thousands the people who will tell me, "Oh, you're a psychology professor, so you can read my mind," which right. I was like, I didn't, you know, no, I do not read your mind, but I do study memory. And so it's very helpful to, given the breadth of the discipline, to be able to actually correct and even explain what it is that you do in psychology. What you're going to be learning is that a lot of students come to psychology thinking that they will want to have some form of profession in the mental health kind of domain or counseling, and a lot of you will do that. But then many of you also discover the many other areas in psychology that you didn't even know existed. And psychology is a broad discipline. You know, in the program, there are areas of developmental, social personality, cognitive, quantitative, bio, developmental, if I said developmental, anyway, several areas. And then a lot of our work today is highly interdisciplinary. It used to be that a psychologist, a researcher in psychology would, you know, work in their own lab and publish these articles where they are single authors or just with one colleague. And now you have this list of many authors. Why? Because we're all trying to really capture the complexity of psychological phenomena from different points of view. And so now psychologists will do research that involve social processes and biomolecular mechanisms and neuroscience, et cetera. And so you have the opportunity to really open your head wide and really think about what happens in people's minds, in their social processes, in their cognitive processes from different points of view. And I think that that's exciting. And you can find this type of breadth and depth both in psychology and cognitive science, because we're both, you know, putting our emphasis in different aspects of the human experience, but still, or animal experience, but still offer this interdisciplinary approach. As for what is best to do strategically for your future prospect, cognitive science or psychology, you know, people will care about what you have learned. The label doesn't matter very much. What matters is what you have learned and what you can show that you're excited about and you have learned about during college and beyond. Mm-hmm. So for either your ambitions as a future graduate student or as a professional post-bac, what will matter the most is what you have learned. So jump in, jump on. I always make this preposition wrong. I get this preposition wrong. But anyway, start strong with figuring out what you care about, and that will be the most important thing for the future.
Awesome. That leads perfectly into the next section about career options. So we got a lot of questions about what the career options are for these two majors. So to add to what Professor Corina and Professor Getty said, I just wanted to add my take on careers and how to go about figuring out what you want to do. So like they mentioned, both of these majors can lead to a wide variety of career options. So we won't be able to name all of them specifically here today. But I can give you an overview of maybe some fields that might interest you if you are majoring in these two. So both of these majors deal with human behavior in some capacity and human emotions. So careers that require a good understanding of those things would be good fits for people in these majors. So that's things like teaching at all levels, elementary, middle, high school, university level, mental health fields, obviously like therapy or social work, but even industry jobs that deal with humans in some capacity and understanding of human behavior. So those things like human resources, so HR, marketing, you know, having a good understanding of what consumer behavior is like. We actually have a class at Davis, not taught by the psych department, but on consumer behavior. public relations, strategic communications, things like that. Those can all, be a good fit for these majors. Some of the Bachelor of Science options that we have for both of these majors. So we have the Psychology BS in a biology emphasis and the Cog-Sci neuroscience emphasis. Those can be good preparation for medical school or other health related fields. We also have the Cognitive Science computational emphasis, which prepares you for like tech jobs like Professor Corina was talking about, artificial intelligence, user interface or user experience design, things like that. It's really interdisciplinary field, so it can go a lot of different ways. But to speak more to what Professor Getty was talking about, ultimately, your major is only a small piece of what leads to a career. It's really about the interests that you have in those majors and the interests that you explore outside of your schooling. So any experience that you have, part-time jobs, research experience, internships, all your coursework, even your general education coursework, those all lead to a good insight of what your interests are. So it's important to stay open-minded and curious about what interests you about, work and career, and, can come to advising, talk to us about your interests, and we'd love to pick apart those things that you're learning with you. That kind of was long-winded, but.
That's great.
And then that leads into, we also got a lot of questions about research and internships. So I've heard a lot about people doing research and internships. Is this something I should be doing? Was a popular question.
Absolutely, yes. There is no ambiguity here. So sometimes we'll give you answers that are, well, yes, you must. And you know why? Because the difference between being a research university and not being in a research university, say being maybe in at Cal State type of university, or even a liberal art college. The difference is that here we do research. Here, the people who you read about in the textbook are actually here doing the work that then gets reported in your textbook, as opposed to learning from people who have learned from the textbook. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be elitist. I'm a little bit elitist, but I just love the research university kind of context, right? So, so here in terms of, so we all offer research units, and you don't have to be a researcher or wanting to be a researcher to participate in research activities. Why? Because for one thing, it provides you the opportunity to do hands-on kind of work. And so you can get to understand whether you even like that type of work. Also, when you do research activities, you get to know your professors, graduate students, research group better. And so once you need to leave, either to go to graduate school or even to apply for a job, we will write you letters. We'll write letters for you that can really talk about what you have learned, the kind of person that you are. So, nobody wants to just read a letter in which it says, so-and-so got an A in my class. It's not really informative. You can get that information from your transcripts. Instead, if we get to know you better through your research in the labs, that's always, a plus. So regardless of whether you want to be a researcher, which we of course love to support because we are researchers ourselves, or you want to just learn more about the field, you should really try to find that opportunity as soon as possible. I also oversee internships, what is called fieldwork in psychology, Psychology 192, which is a different approach. This is not research at UC Davis. In this kind of program, you would actually look in the community of the various agencies that offer services to the community. You would say, I want to be part of that. I want to intern there for a while. And you still get credit through UC Davis for that work.
Yeah, again, totally agree with Simone on this. It is a unique opportunity to participate in research at all different levels. And will definitely enrich your education. And again, the tools that you learn along the way by volunteering in a lab or doing a 198, We also, or actually a 199, which is kind of independent credit. We also have things like 198s, which are directed reading. Some of the departments offer those. So where you might not have time to actually spend physically in a particular lab, in Davis, but you might say, hey, here's a topic of interest. I'm really interested in attention in 3-year-olds. Could I get a reading group together of people who want to discuss this on kind of a one-off kind of basis, throughout the quarter? So there's lots of different ways to engage in this kind of extracurricular, quote unquote, kind of research opportunity. And definitely, I find it, students get so much out of it as we do at faculty. I mean, we run these labs where we need people doing this type of work, and so it's a nice synergy. And it's also interesting, again, in more kind of academic labs, to understand this kind of hierarchy of undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs, faculty, and again, within academia, that's kind of a very standard model, which you would get accustomed to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so I'm currently in a psychology research lab, studying language development in graphic lab at the Center for Mind and Brain. And so I joined this lab a year ago, so in fall quarter of my second year. And after a year, I have a pretty good idea that research may not exactly be what I want to pursue in the future. But I definitely don't regret joining the lab, and I'm actually thinking of just staying, just because, because being the AB major, first of all, internship and research, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but it is a nifty way to earn upper division elective units for your major. So if you go through all these upper division classes, or if you're lacking for, I don't know, prerequisites for certain upper divs, or you're just like, or you're trying to graduate and you can't or none of the classes somehow interest you, doing research units definitely actually adds to your major. That aside, being in a lab definitely helped me appreciate the research section of the field a lot more, even though that's not something I'm gonna go into, because inevitably throughout all your upper division classes, you are going to be reading tons and tons of journals, journal articles that have been written by the professionals in the field, and learning how to read them, learning how to analyze them, and just quickly find, answers or through these journals, because they can get really, really long and tedious. And it just showed me the behind the scenes of the people who actually write these journals. You find these in your textbook and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many words, don't know how to find any information. But working in a lab, where I'm working with a professor who's actually written these articles, and also just getting to work and interact with graduate students. I used to think graduate students they're like what Professor Corina was saying, the hierarchy of academia, right? But being able to interact with the professors and graduate students on a more intimate level definitely sort of, I guess, bridges the gap between those levels. And it helped me, not see them as someone intimidating, but it also helps you, build a network of people, so, and I was able to get nifty tips about, graduate school as well, because there's just such direct access to these professors and grad students. So I definitely recommend joining a research lab if you can. I think since I know my lab is going, even though we're fully online, we're still operating, and I think we're still also accepting new people to join as well. I think the labs are becoming very, very flexible now, and I think some labs are even accepting more people, just because before we were limited in terms of capacity because of the physical space of the labs. In the Center for Mind and Brain, there's only a certain assigned space for each lab because there's so many of them. But now that we're online, more students can actually work for these labs. So even if research isn't something that interests you or something you're not going to pursue, there's definitely a lot to learn from these labs.
Anna says so many very wise things that you should listen to really carefully. And just to kind of summarize some ideas, like when we think about what is the main goal of our instruction here, what are we trying to teach you? And for me, my main goal is to really make sure that you guys are educated consumers of information, that you can go out and interpret findings from science on your own, where you don't want, where you don't have to have the pre-digested kind of interpretation of some journalists that may know less about psychologists than you do, right? And so how do you learn this? So ultimately, you may forget the details about what you learn in a class on memory or in a class on something else. But what we hope that you're learning is the method of thinking and assessing information and assessing evidence. And that you can get both from classroom activities and in the labs. And I think that is really important for personal growth.
Yes, thank you. Those were excellent points. Definitely, Emma, like, even if you find research isn't what you want to do, that's still great insight to have. Knowing what you don't want is still excellent for your future options. So can we speak more to what research opportunities will look like this year with everything being online?
Yeah, I'll start a little bit. I think this is going to be a little bit challenging, as was mentioned. You know, some labs are actually are finding ways to ramp up participation. One of the labs that are doing one-on-one or even just three-on-one kind of human contact kind of experimentation obviously are on hold. Basically, so many of the labs are essentially shuttered or just very strict protocols about who can enter and who can come and go and so forth. And so that's certainly going to kind of, in the short term anyway, kind of restrict that type of research interaction. But I do know labs are trying to get more creative, especially in again, making use of internet tools and existing corpora, existing data sets that are out there in ways that undergraduates can start to interact and call some of this data is a really important skill set, and also again adds to the overall kind of research goals. So I would say, again, in our advisors here in psychology and cognitive science can say more about this, but I know the advising page has a fairly active a page where professors are posting research opportunities for students, and make sure that you know where that is and start to look over the wealth of things that might be posted there. But also I would suggest that if you find yourself in a particular class that has really excited you, got you really interested in a topic that you weren't perhaps aware of before, talk to that professor and ask them, are there ways that I could further my own research in this particular area? Because even if they might not have lab resources, or maybe they have enough undergraduates or graduate students already, they often know other people who have related needs and can point you to other resources. Again, Simona has mentioned this new initiatives that the university is trying to provide, these kind of internship opportunities outside of the university. And this is a big new program for UC Davis to try to venture into more of the public sphere rather than in our little kind of ivory tower kind of existences. So be mindful of that as well, to look for opportunities that take you outside of the university. And again, in a virtual world, that might mean doing research, in Europe, for somebody who's doing, or in China or wherever. So that it actually, we might see a new kind of growth in these types of re-envisioned research opportunities. But again, this is work in progress, and hopefully we'll see this come to fruition.
Yeah, I don't think I need to add anything to. So well said, David.
Yeah, we are getting, we're close to the end of our time, very short hour that we had. Thank you so much to everyone who joined and stayed with us for this hour. Alyssa is putting our contact info in the chat. So if you have any other questions, please email us. We got a ton of questions that we weren't able to get to today. Like we didn't even get to half the questions. So we will be compiling some answers to those frequently asked questions and either sending them out via email to our listserv or putting them on our website. So look out for that. But yeah, we are here to help you. We're gonna have drop-in hours. Feel free to reach out, come to those drop-in hours, ask us questions. And I know orientation has been a long 5 days, so thanks for sticking with us and joining us on this last day. And best of luck with fall quarter.
Yeah. Congratulations and good luck, everybody. Go Aggies.
Yes.